Good morning, everybody. This says welcome, Dr. Bell, but it really meant to say welcome, Dr. Miller, Bob Miller. So welcome, everybody. Let's start with the review of the meeting notes. The first one is August 28th meeting. Are we ready to talk about these? Or do we want to hold these over for one more meeting? Do we have more time to look at them? What's the pleasure of the group?
Let's hold it for one more meeting, give us time to look it over.
Okay, so we're going to hold over August 28th, November 4, December 4, and January 22nd until the next meeting. And then we will then definitely take action on them at that meeting, okay?
And maybe 2 days?
And then, well, I think generally what the trend that I sense is that people want at least a full meeting between meetings to have a chance to review and make sure that everything's right. And I'm certainly okay with that if that's the pleasure of the group. So whatever people want to do. Okay, so let's go to public comment. First of all, I want to congratulate the Courier staff because everybody's got their heads deep in the Courier this morning, so that's good. It's the news everybody wants to read, so I guess that's a good thing. So we appreciate the Courier. So anybody who would like to speak on public comment this morning, if any?
I would.
Julie, please.
It was brought to my attention that at Kaplan yesterday, the FA's position on winter was summarized. So I would like to clear the air, and I would like to say that the FA's position on winter, is that not true?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We talked about my position on winter. I don't know if
but not the FA's position?
I just, if I can say the truth, I made the comment that within the new contract there is an agreement in the contract to basically not discuss the winter calendar issue until such time as the PERB issue comes down.
Okay, that is correct.
Okay.
Then, but the FA's position on winter was that we would abide by shared governance, and in the meantime, we would wait for PERB.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That was correct, Laura? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else who would like to speak in public comments? Seeing no one, we'll move to an information item, information only actionable improvement items, and I think that would be.
Rob, this was actually a mistake by me. I carried it over, and we talked about this last, so unless anybody has any questions on the actionable improvement items, we don't need to discuss it.
And to be clear, actionable improvement items relative to the actionable improvement plan items within the self-evaluation, of which I believe there are 49.
Correct. And
how we as an institution are pledging to the ACCJC that we will work on these actionable improvement plans going forward. Yes, ma'am.
A list of those was given at the last college council meeting, and there were some members who weren't present. Was that list emailed to the members who missed that meeting, and could it be if it wasn't?
Kathy, can we email out the actionable improvement plan items to the rest of the college council?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you get those to Cindy will just resend them out to all the members, and then we'll make sure everybody's got them. Okay, moving on for discussion and consultation. Student Equity Plan, Dr. Levo, I think, wants to speak to this, among others. I saw Dr. Levo here a second ago. Is she not here now? Okay, I think she's on her phone, so if you mind, we'll go to the next item, and then we'll come back to Student Equity Plan. So next item is Board Policies and Administrative Procedures. A, Sexual and Other Assaults on Campus, Board Policy 3540. It's a handout. B, Sexual and Other Assaults on Campus, Administrative Procedure 3540, a handout.
So these were handed out at the last meeting. I have them projected up above so we can look at them together.
Okay, who's going to lead the discussion on these?
Can we make them a little bigger for
yes,
some of us?
Yes, I was about to do that.
Thank you, thank you.
That might be too big, but...
No, that's just right. Just right.
Cindy, can you pull the screen down a little bit?
That was not going to be as easy to look at, but...
Okay.
There was an attempt to convene a working group.
Oh, really?
2 appointments were mandated.
Okay.
And when we couldn't make it, there was no attempt to convene a meeting group. future, when people send out email requests for meetings, it would be nice for it to be a dutiful, so it could be when we're available, not when one person is available.
So, let's see, who's leading the discussion on this? Crystal, do you want to provide us any kind of background on it or anything? Or?
I'm sorry, I haven't been invited to anything, I don't know anything.
Okay.
Well, it never happens, so don't worry about it.
So the
But I
back,
was never invited, so.
maybe you can just provide a background of why we have this new policy?
Because it's legally required.
There we go.
Okay. So, then where are we on this? Is it something that we need to get this committee together to talk about, or before we can actually pass it to, or have a vote on it for recommendation to superintendent and president, so I can take it forward, or where are we with this right now?
Dr. Miller, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Go right ahead,
I
Dr.
can
Bell
share with you, Dr. Piola's comments. It was my office that was attempting to convene the meeting, and as you indicated, we tried and were unsuccessful, and I cannot explain why we didn't reconvene. I didn't reschedule because I directed that to happen. And so the last council meeting, I was asked to do that, and so I took it upon that assignment to get that done. We haven't yet been able to call the people together. It's going to be Dr. Piolis, Terry Hampton, and then representatives from each of the elected bodies, shared governance groups. And so we asked for representatives from the respective groups. Haven't been able to get those, and so I'll be happy to do that if the council wants to reconvene that group the week of March 9th when we get back from spring break. Pull the meeting together and get a recommendation back to council at the April meeting.
Okay, so our next meeting is actually March 26th.
It's the March meeting.
So what I hear Dr. Bell saying is that he's committing to pulling this group together, having a discussion, and then we will have a report at the next college council meeting. Manny.
I would ask that invitations to be sent to all constituency groups to ensure that they can send a representative. I don't think the Senate received one related to that. If this is going to be represented from every constituency group present to look at the policy, then it's important that everyone is represented.
Absolutely, and Manny, I apologize because that was my direction.
Okay.
They have to go out to all the constituency groups and have someone appointed.
If we could receive a copy of this, I want to put it on the Senate agenda, so at least we could have
Yeah,
two different looks.
They were forwarded out with the last
Right.
agenda, but I will support them out again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, thank you, Dr. Bell, and others as well. And by the way, I just want to thank everybody. We have great attendance today. Just about everybody's here, so that's great. So thank you for that. Dr. Levo, are you ready to talk about the student equity plan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Lebo, do you need anything on the screen, or you can do all paper based?
Paper.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, Cindy, could you? Thank you. So I'm passing out the student equity plan, and I just wanted to let everybody know the student equity committee has been working very hard on the plan. If you already have a plan, then you can please pass it along to those who don't. The student equity plan, what it is the Chancellor's Office has given us $1,009,466 to review our student equity data and figure out how to close the achievement gaps. So if you look at the plan, it's a really long form standardized by the Chancellor's Office. And what it requires us to do is look at access to PCC and then student retention, how students perform in basic skills, then also how students do in regards to transfer, and then overall graduation from PCC. And so I noticed here, you see that this has been through many edits. We try to make sure to include feedback and submit a plan that will work for PCC and our students. What we plan to do is take our $1 million allocation and make a request for proposal process for the campus. So there would be $500,000 available for the campus to submit proposals. And if you look at the back of the plan, there is a rubric. The rubric is what we would use to determine which proposals submitted would be selected. So it says draft, request for proposals, evaluation rubric. And notice it says addresses multiple promising practices. So what we found in research is there is an organization called the Center for Community College Student Engagement, and they have promising practices. And these promising practices show through evidence that there are 13 promising practices that move the needle on student success. There's also the American Association of Colleges and Universities High Impact Practices, and those also show that it moves the needle on student success. So we would want any proposal to be submitted to include multiple PPs and PIPs. We also would encourage people to connect 2 or more departments or programs together. For example, I will take English, since I'm standing by many. Let's say English to partner with counseling, because basic skills data shows for students of color in basic skills English classes, it's very challenging for students to make it out of the basic skills sequence to make it to college level. So let's say counseling and English would partner to do an early alert intervention program. That could be a proposal. And that would include, let's say, a small learning community, which is a high impact practice, early alert, which is a promising practice, and connecting 2 or more departments together. We would be targeting our basic skills outcomes, and our target student population could be African American, Asian Pacific Islander, Latino. The next category is scalability plan. So we would like to figure out how do you learn from helping a small group of students, but to apply those services to large groups of students, since we have 25,000 students here at PCC. How will we evaluate our project to make sure that it's effective? How are we going to train and support people to help in our project? And how will we use technology and make it accessible to students with disabilities, let's say. So that would be the rubric that we would use to submit to the campus, and then you would write your proposals, we'll select the projects and fund them. The other $500,000 would be used to provide a staff, including somebody to oversee student equity projects, to give that person an operating budget. And the committee felt very strongly about helping students with non-academic issues, such as social services types of issues. There are many students who have inadequate access to food, shelter, low-cost legal services, the kinds of things that really do become obstacles when students are trying to graduate. So if we have a social worker type of service, that would be funded through the other $500,000 of this. And then research. Research is extremely important. The bulk of this report is all research, because we have to keep track now of all of our students by category, how they're doing in these 5 points: access, retention, basic skills completion, transfer, and graduation. From now until eternity, we have to keep track of this information. So that's what I'm here to present to all of you about our student equity plan. I thank the 20 people on the committee who have helped out to get us to this point. I did go to the Academic Senate for approval on Monday, and that's why I'm here before the College Council to present this information before I go to the board.
So, thank you, Dr. Levo. So basically, where we are is we now have a student equity plan as required by the state. One thing that I'm not sure that Dr. Levo mentioned is that student equity plans have been required for years and years and years and years, but during the economic downturn in particular, most campuses fell behind in actually basically preparing or updating their plans.
Well, I joined the campus in 2008, and I didn't know back then that we were required to do a student equity plan. I was notified about this student equity plan by the chancellor's office, and then I asked, where's our student equity plan? And we hadn't done one since 2006, I believe.
And as a result of the Student Success Task Force and the 22 recommendations that came from that, one of the recommendations is that all campuses or colleges, all 112 colleges, would be required to create plans. And the great thing about it is, and they attached money to it, significant money to support the implementation of the plans.
Yes, so in July, we'll get $1.4 million.
Right. And so where we are now then is in order to qualify for the money and the ongoing money, we had to develop a plan. So Cynthia and her colleagues, the committee members, did that. The plans were actually due, I think, in January or something like that. But we took a little bit longer here on our campus to get it done. Cynthia, as she mentioned, took it to the Academic Senate. The Senate was kind enough to vote in favor of it after some significant and important discussion. So today, she brings it here to put it in front of our group to decide if we are supportive of it. And then this group obviously would make a recommendation to me as the interim superintendent president, and then I in turn would take it to the board for approval and then submission to the state. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to discussion about the request, which is for this group to approve the plan, and then we can kind of go from there. Yes, ma'am.
I should have probably mentioned this at the Senate meeting. I support the plan, but I wonder if there can be added to it a note either related to the request for proposals, or maybe this can be addressed in the orientations you're going to be conducting to prepare people to present those. But I hope that those who are submitting proposals will be encouraged to review their proposals within their departments, so that the departments support the proposals and that the proposal doesn't contradict with the vision or plan for the department that the faculty has. That's one of the things I think that with past monies has created problems within departments.
Sure.
And I think it's really important that there's full departmental support for those proposals.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Manny raises a good point. The committee plan, and I'm going to get out of the way.
Yeah.
The committee plan, after this is approved, is that we will provide orientations to the campus. And we'll do it much like when we were describing and discussing the data analysis. We had a breakfast and learn at 8 a.m. or 7:30 a.m., a lunch and learn at noon. We're going to add a dine and learn. We might add a wine and learn because we just need more time to wrap our brain around all of this information. What we want is for the campus, all of the campus, to please think about how we can come together to solve these equity issues and submit a proposal.
Dr. Levo.
And what Manny is saying is, within departments, you should make sure to communicate your proposal ideas.
So Dr. Levo, is it possible to add that to the rubric as an evaluation component that they either did or they
I think
didn't?
probably through the application itself, which is the second page.
Right.
This communication
So
with
right.
the department.
can we adjust the plan
Yes.
before? So what we'll do is we'll
Great,
tweak the
great.
plan
Thank you.
accordingly, so that will go into the state, so it'll be clear that that's one of our steps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I think I saw Jeannie's hand first, and then Chris.
Just a question, you said providing social work type services with part of the money. Does that plan also include to align or have form alliances with local attorneys to help provide those services, or local businesses to provide food, so that way perhaps it doesn't come out of that budget?
Yes, it would, although one of the allowable expenses is gas cards, meal tickets, bus cards. It does provide for that on the allowable expenses, so we could initially start with that while we're relationship building with the legal agencies and people in town who could provide us with assistance. But yeah, Jeannie, that's a really good point.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm still a little concerned that more than half of this money is going to administrative costs, and not directly to the students. And so I'm wondering, when we qualify then for the rest of the money, do you expect the same kind of a proportion in expenditures, or will more of the money go to student?
Yeah, and you know, the other half of the money, the $500,000, it is for social work services and it is for an operating budget. To me, those are services for students. That goes directly to the students.
So let's interrogate this just a little bit more. So 500,000 to open up an office, but it's not all 500,000 for an administrator and a secretary, for example.
No.
It's a portion of that, and the rest of it is budget for what?
For what I just described, a social worker, meal cards, gas cards, bus tickets, whatever it is that the manager is responsible for leading. Some campuses have a campus committee for access, retention, basic skills, and completion. And those 4 committees come up with the plans to how to address each segment gaps. And then the plans are funded. So that could be a method by which that budget is expended, and those services would go directly to students. So this is just the initial budget. We expect that the manager for this position will, provide us with a recommendation of how to make expenditures in the future. And just so that this committee is aware, that this program plan, this document is due every year. So we have to show the Chancellor's Office how we plan to use our money every January.
Cynthia, so then for that, so right now we're going to receive a little bit over $1 million. Next year we're going to receive a little bit over $1 million. So for that,
1.9.
1.9. Okay, so when we receive that 1.9, do you then foresee half of that going to administration?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Second, is it possible to incorporate more students into this program when it comes time to workshop, to do workshops, participate, get their input? For example, in the classroom, I'll give a test, and let's say 10 students fail the exam. All I know is that they failed the exam. What I don't know is why they failed the exam. So we have to start asking questions. Why did you fail? What happened? So I'm thinking that rather than have the faculty or employees here on this campus determine what we can do to close the gap, why not get it directly from the students? I mean, they themselves should know what would they need to close the gap. So I mentioned this yesterday at the meeting, student meeting, and hopefully we can find a way to incorporate student opinion into the whole process.
Absolutely, yes.
I think to address your concern, Eduardo, I think for us it's a challenge as well, because we've been trying to get data that shows what students have, why students fail classes, what are sort of the hindrances and why students repeat classes and stuff like that. So it's a challenge for us, even on the student side, to get that information. But I think doing with what we did, especially with our survey, was we found out a lot of the reasons were, students have transportation issues, they have family issues, they have, it's just not the right time in their lives, death, stuff like that. And it's a multifaceted issue. And I think the campus, as well as us, need to work on making sure that we actually get some sound statistics and sound data that shows why these students are not passing these classes or failing classes. I know for me, one of the reasons why I repeated so many of my math classes was because I didn't know what the hell I was doing 3 years ago. And so for me, and I told Dr. Leva I never had an ed plan, and she got white in the face and freaked out for a little bit. So for me, I think a lot of it has to do with resourcing, and a lot of it has to do with availability of resources. And a lot of our students, especially, I would say more than 60% of them have no idea that some of these resources are available to them, which is like Dreamkeeper, stuff like that. So I think in the next coming, 6 months, I think the college as well as associated students, I won't be here unfortunately, but we need to work together in order to create a viable survey or a viable way to get this sort of data from students.
That's a good point. And Gina Lopez from the Student Equity Committee attended the AS meeting to brief them on this, and she will be going back to help them contribute to an RFP.
Okay, are we at the point of being able to, I guess, vote on this? Is anybody willing to put this forward? I know there's always this issue, do we vote on things at college council or not, or do we just by consensus? How do we want to do this? 'Cause-
Technically, you have to vote on it. Remember the Brown Act thing we had. This is the Brown Act committee.
Yeah, so we do have to vote.
So we have to make a motion. And so I motion to approve the recommendation of the equity plan to the board,
Very
or to
good.
the president.
Jeannie seconded that. Further discussion?
I'm not sure we can, because under the college council rules, this is an advisory group, not a vote. So what we can do is have like an informal,
Okay.
just to
How about
say we all have.
Can we have an advice? Can we do an
advisory
advisory
vote.
vote?
There we go.
So let's
There we go.
move, if you wouldn't mind, Marcia, move as an advisory vote to the superintendent and president to move this forward to the board of trustees.
So moved.
And Jeannie's second there. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Dr. Lebo, and your committee, and everybody else, and thank you, Academic Senate, and Classified Senate, and everybody else who anything to do with this.
And
It's really good
I
news.
will post a final copy of the final plan on our webpage and send it off to the campus. And I just want to encourage everyone to attend the Jaime Escalante exhibit next Thursday,
Yes.
4:30 in class.
Yes, thank you. All right, spring campus survey. Who's going to talk to the spring campus? Ryan, please bring it up. Thank you, sir.
I'm just trying to get it the right size for everybody. Bear with me. Okay, I think that fits most of it, so we'll see. So this was, what happened is we decided that we were going to do another homegrown survey in between the Modern Think, and then we'd follow up with Modern Think the following year so that we would have a 2-year review of how we've progressed. So Crystal went ahead and brought in the survey, which was originally done in 2010 and approved through these groups back then. And we distributed that at the last College Council and asked for any feedback or input as to how it could be changed or made better. And I want to thank, first of all, Crystal for making all the changes and working extremely hard on this. And I want to thank the people who came forward and had some suggestions for changes. And we incorporated all those, and I wanted to go through the survey. So ideally, we could approve it here today because we don't get it out soon, there won't be any faculty to answer it to, at least not the primary term faculty. So, same introduction, there were no requests for changes to the introduction. There were some changes asked for the which campus do you work at so that people could select more than one.
So now, you can select more than one there?
No, I have to change that.
Oh, we will change that.
But that would be kind of, it's hard to be an online instructor only and be at Rosemead, so maybe you just want to change the question to say which campus do you primarily work at?
What is the preference of the committee? Primary or select all?
Well, what are we trying to ascertain? I think if it's primarily, then you get a sense of how people feel in the world that they live in. If that's what we're trying to get a feel for.
But would we then lose feedback because maybe they only spend a little bit of time at Rosemead, but there's some things that they think could be improved at Rosemead? I'm just using that as an example, and we lose that because it's not their primary location.
Percentage of time spent at each campus. Percentages must add to 100.
So add that somehow to the.
I think that would be probably asking for a little too much math from people taking this.
I would just suggest more than one, and then their answers can be relevant. If they're having an experience at Rosemead, they can address. We might need to do more research to discover whether that's a response related to Rosemead or the main campus. But I would suggest more than one. If we're looking for an overall climate, an overall response to how they feel about the institution, and the institution is represented by all those locations, then more than one would make sense to me.
I agree. And also, if you wanted to branch it out, you could do the conditional question line, right? So if I answer 2 campuses and I get 2 lines of questioning concerning each, this is what it's like at the main campus, this is what it's like at Rosemead, if you wanted to do that part. But I agree with Manny that I think it's a an umbrella thing for the entire climate.
Crystal, do you have anything?
Well, I really don't have much of a preference, except that you really kind of have to change the online instructor only to be online instructor. Because if they say online instructor only and then they choose the main campus, that doesn't add up, so.
Right, so could we remove on only? And actually, if it should say online, actually.
Just
right?
say,
Say online.
Just online.
So we're going with select all that apply then?
Okay. And then just under online instructor, just remove instructor only. Just do online. Yeah.
Okay.
it's following.
It's following me. There we go. Some of these were changed to be more affirmative. I'll just put those up there to see if anyone has comments. Yes.
There's a verb missing from the first question. Do you feel that the college's day-to-day operations are influenced by?
Yeah.
Where am I looking?
The title, yeah.
The headline.
Got it.
After operation.
After
Yeah.
operation.
Okay. Okay,
Several
move
of
on.
these, several of these are multi-barrel questions. So typically in construction and survey, you ask one question at a time,
The last two.
not two or three in
Two or
one.
three, yeah.
I didn't look at the other questions.
But just a comment.
I don't disagree with Dr. Chios, I just think that if you break them all out individually, this will become exceedingly long survey to take.
Do we have something to compare this data to? Have we done this before?
We have to do this before.
Okay. Next question.
Right.
Were they the same type of wording when we did this last time?
Yeah, actually, this has been pretty much a standard survey here for years. We just actually the only thing I think that really changed was we added the sections on the shared governance groups. That was all that changed.
So if we're trying to compare it to previous data, we can't really change the questions.
Not a lot.
Are we okay with this? Next. What's the question?
The question is, please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statements.
I have a question for you, Crystal. Are student workers allowed to take this? Because my experiences working here and going into offices are very different than employees who work here.
We haven't distributed it to student workers in the past, but that doesn't mean we can't distribute
Okay.
it.
I know.
You have to be able to identify them. For me, that's a little tricky.
I would say like we should not now, like right, because it's our like 2015. But I would say in the future, only because like some of the offices that I visited doing work for certain programs here on campus, some of my experiences have been horrid and some of them have been really great. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's the same for everyone else, but
Yep, no, it's relevant.
you might want to just maybe get from a student worker perspective, because
No, and I think actually what would be the best thing to do is to add a section that addresses student workers. Because I think some of these might be very hard for students to answer.
Yeah.
To answer, but if we had a section that we developed for them, I think that would be very useful.
okay, I can help you with that.
I know you will.
But not for this go around. Okay.
Do you want me to scroll down?
Yeah.
Before you scroll
The
down,
college's mission.
this is something for the future, I think. If I go
Be
quick,
first.
for example, I'm aware of appropriate and effective channels for making suggestions that will be heard at the institutional level. I strongly agree, etc. So then, to communication to the employees, what are those channels? For example, if I were to say I strongly agree, and you were to ask me, what are those? What would we say? I mean, do individuals, do people here on this campus really know what those channels are? And if I say participate in staff development activities, what exactly? I mean, we should have a different type of survey so that, or informational item that informs people what effective channels exist on campus in order to reach this.
May I make a suggestion?
At a future date, not for this.
No, but I agree, and I think what we should do is when we get the results of this and we see where people land on these different items, and we put out the results to the survey, we should add those. You know, we should use the results of the survey proactively, and if people say, even if people do say, I'm aware of appropriate and effective channels, we can, in the results, put, and here they are.
Right.
So we could do that in the results and try to get it out in fall, maybe at Flex.
This is becoming a loaded data, huh?
This would just be information.
I think we're missing a word in. Do you think that the college's planning process is linked to the resource allocation budgeting process?
Gray line or white line?
The gray line.
Up,
Right
top.
there.
Is, process is.
Linked, is linked. Yeah.
Keep going. Stop.
Right there.
And a few lines later, there's another one missing.
Okay, where's the other one?
The white line, third from the bottom, do you think the results of the program review process are used?
Okay. I'm glad I have so many English teachers in the room.
Oh, you don't want me to go into English mode?
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so
I think this is all wrong.
this was a change actually. We had the condensed ethnicities, and it was asked if we could just give the complete spread, so we did.
Japanese, Asina, Japanese.
And Asian Chinese.
And Asian Chinese.
I've seen that.
Is that something we could pronounce?
Is it in Japanese? Because I don't know.
The one above it too.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And Asian.
Well, that's not Chinese. I can verify that.
Okay. Chinese?
Mandarin,
Do you?
a little bit.
Wow.
I took 2 years of it, but
Okay.
And
Can you
Asian.
write it?
yeah,
Asian, Japanese.
that's what I first learned to do traditionally.
Yeah, we'll spell.
It's too hard.
Okay.
Just the campus climate this is actually Survey Monkey, right? They don't spell check, so thank you.
And splitting hairs, that other, please specify, is that in the right place or should it be moved over?
Say, Bob, I missed what you said.
Should other be on
The other be
the
under white?
Go over.
It doesn't do that.
Yeah,
It has to be there, okay.
yeah, because then you have the please specify bar.
Oh, I see,
Okay.
I got it, I see.
Sorry, can you go back up? There's not an option to decline to state, you have to choose? Or can they not answer that question?
Actually, they do have to enter, so you're right, I can put an answer choice and decline to state.
What about mixed race?
Other.
They can select one or
Other.
more.
Select more than one here.
Yeah. Oh, or the.
But would they know other means mixed race?
Oh, no. It says select one or more. So you could do.
Bob,
Like one or more.
I think you're referring to how the
See at the very
students
top?
are
Yeah,
sometimes,
okay.
this is how they get classified as mixed, is that they mark more
Okay.
than one.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. So, this in the future maybe is where we would put
Student workers?
student loan. There were slight changes to this just to make it clear.
Just
So
the
hopefully it is-
consistency of whether you're gonna capitalize what's in parentheses or not.
What do we mean by classified staff hourly?
Yeah, I was just thinking that as
Oh,
well.
yeah, it should be unclassified, right? Classified and unclassified.
Yeah, or are we trying to get college assistants? Who's supposed to check classified staff hourly?
It's kind of in standard categories, so
It's our,
you can call it anything you want.
but it is what you're talking about.
What would be the preferred name change for this one, guys?
Well,
If we
who
mean,
is it?
College assistant?
well,
But don't we have
But
other
then we're
designations?
Unclassified.
it's, yeah, unclassified.
In our-
But I don't know that they would know that. So if
Yeah.
we're asking our college assistants to fill this out, I don't think they would know that they're supposed to choose unclassified.
Right.
Julie, what if we just said staff hourly?
Yes. Yeah, or you could say college assistants, but, yes.
How do they view themselves with those two?
I think they just call themselves college assistants and student workers. In fact, all of them call themselves student workers, even when.
Even the college assistants.
Even the college assistants. But yeah, they certainly wouldn't know unrepresented.
So this is Jordan's group that he wants to call.
No, that's another group.
No, because student workers fall into that same group. It's just
Right.
whether they're in 6 units or less or more. Whether they're a college assistant or student worker.
Faculty hourly?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, maybe we should change that to adjunct.
I think so.
Can we just say adjunct faculty, just to be really clear?
We can do anything we like.
That's a good answer, Ryan.
And I get rid of the hourly after that?
Get rid of the hourly.
Yeah, by all means.
So if we're saying full-time faculty, do we need to say full-time classified staff? Because we've got hourly classified staff, so do we need to balance it out by?
Well, the class, this is being changed to, yeah, staff hourly equal college assistants.
I mean, I don't have a preference, but it seems like if there's full-time on the other one, it might be helpful to put full-time on that.
Classified staff full-time in doing this.
Agreed?
It's consistent.
Sure. Is this anonymous or confidential?
Well, how do we, because I'm not gonna know who actually took it, I mean, individually, and we usually aggregate up to the entire college or by categories,
So you'll never see a name
I will never see a name.
anonymous?
That was with Marvin Day.
Unless, you know, I have like a ton of time on my hands and I really want to track their IP address, then maybe, but I really don't care.
And then you'd have to know they were the one using the computer
That's right.
anyways.
Okay, next.
All right. That one.
Just use your-
Okay, so this is the one I may need input on because I didn't get any responses from the faculty. So just as a historical, because we did this with Classified and the Management Association, this is what the faculty asked to be asked 5 years ago. So anything you want to be asked differently, we are completely okay with. I know the Classified had a lot of changes that they wanted to make sure got in there. So this is the summary of the board, and then these are the questions. And have at them. No offense taken to anything.
Well, let me ask you this. This is something that we want the academic senate and the FA to respond to, or just the academic senate?
Faculty.
Faculty.
All faculty. So unless someone has a problem with this offline, when they've got a little bit more time to consider it, in the next day or two, they can get back to Ryan and Crystal with whatever changes they want to make, and that'll save the time in the group now. So Crystal's looking at me with a...
Well, the way this was done the last time, these questions came through the academic senate to me.
Okay.
They developed them, they sent it to me, and they said, this is what we want on the survey. I don't feel that it would be appropriate for just any faculty member to contact me or Ryan to do that. I think it needs to go through the academic
Well,
senate.
that's what I was saying, is that the academic senate executive committee, which happens to be sitting here, can then work through their process quickly, get back to you any changes, because it's really business that relates to the academic senate, and I don't feel like I want to rush them to this, although I don't want to give you more than quote-unquote 48 hours or 72 hours, because we want to get on with this. but I don't feel the need to get to it right this second, unless you folks are comfortable with that.
No, that's fine. That'd be best.
Just a general suggestion, since you are asking how much you agree or disagree, the "in my opinion" and the "I feel that" seem redundant.
I would agree. And for Management Association, we removed those.
Okay, I would suggest removing this one.
So why don't we agree that Eduardo will get back to Ryan or Crystal with the changes, if there are any changes?
If that being said, then I think that we have to be feel comfortable that if we don't get any response, this is good with the removal of the I feels.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in my opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay, so by close of business Monday, is that fair enough?
So we have so I'll send out an email today. We'll discuss this during our academic senate meeting, so that evening or early Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning, so by Tuesday morning, we'll have a response on this.
Should that say rep or alternate? I'm sorry. Because sometimes the alternates are there more or as much as the reps are.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Have you ever served at the very bottom as a representative or an alternate?
We're alternate.
Yeah?
Yes.
Can we add or alternate under have you ever served?
Yeah.
Already written.
Thank you, sir.
And committees should be plural at the top, first line of that line.
Okay, moving on.
So this was the new management questions.
Paragraph.
Uh-huh.
I might want to wordsmith that.
Okay. I think they copied it just from the website on shared governance, but we'll see.
And Julie, these
Just
are
the
mainly
first
from
time
my
introduces
meeting with
per
Amy.
the-
Right.
It took me a while to puzzle that out.
Do we have any changes on this? I don't think so, do we?
Anything from Management Association on this? You good? Okay, very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Shoot through now. Classified, hopefully I got all of your changes in here.
So, Jean? You ready? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then these were the general shared governance questions for everybody.
Could we see the prompt again?
The prompt is, please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statements. 5-point Likert.
I would invert that. I'd go faculty classified management in the parent, please.
Should it be employee groups instead of employees groups?
That's the English teacher. You can't put that.
Where were you 5 years ago?
He was here.
Well, if you really want to get into wordsmithing, you could look at the third
Questions
question.
3 and 4 the same as the ones we saw on page 1?
English. Why not just say opportunities are available to suggest improvements?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
The number 3 where
Number
it
3
says,
is very wordy. You could just
Yeah.
say opportunities are available to suggest improvements at my department or unit level.
But aren't 3 and 4 the same as the ones on page 1?
I don't believe
well,
so.
no, I don't think it was. I don't know about 4, but I don't think 3 was.
What did you want to read that real quick before
Take-
I go back to page 1?
Opportunities are available to suggest improvements at my department or unit level.
Because that's the appropriate and effective channels question you asked about, Eduardo.
Right.
Oh yeah, 4 is the same.
I mean, we do that sometimes in psychology to make sure people aren't lying. We do it in the MMPI, but...
Make sure they're
I
paying
don't know if
attention.
we were that purposeful.
Okay.
Just pretend.
What I will do is I'll make a note here to double check on
Okay.
page 1, and if it's the exact same question, I'll remove it.
All right.
And again, with the I feel, I think it's not necessary.
Yeah.
The counselors want to know.
I know.
Feelings, though.
I was thinking of Cynthia with her counseling.
Okay.
Does the survey instrument forbid someone from filling out answers in a category other than where they are? Like
You mean can like.
a manager fill out the
No.
faculty one?
There's a skip pattern built into it, based on how they choose their employee classification.
So they'd have to lie about their employee classification to do that.
All right, not that.
Not a manager to do that.
But if they're all open, then.
Good question.
Make sure and convey that to the Senate if they'd like to
Okay.
review management, they should lie.
Are we good to move on?
Yes.
This is please indicate how much you agree or disagree again.
Again with the feels.
No, these are appropriate for I feel.
What's the top of the thing?
Environment.
Oh.
Cynthia's counselors would be happy with this action.
So if I feel safe in the campus during daylight hours, why don't I, is there a question for
Yes.
evening hours?
Yeah, right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Four or five. I feel safe on campus.
Oh,
during
evening
the
or
day.
night,
In general, Ryan, all of these are complete sentences, some have periods, some don't. That's true across the whole survey. And punctuation should be reviewed for consistency. So C part, is a kind of emergency. So just dealing with something all the time.
Doesn't sound good. We'll just bring this stuff for them to read in the spare time.
We have up-to-date methods for getting our work done here, and the college operates efficiently. Is it like that?
We have up-to-date methods of getting work done
Isn't
here.
that kind of the same question?
It all depends how they interpret it. Who is we?
One, can the college operate efficiently on out-of-date methods?
Somebody remember the name
Possibly.
Dorothy Colts by any
Possibly,
chance?
but.
Dorothy Colts. She was a PCC faculty member I had back when I was here, and she was syntax and grammar. She taught me, I learned so, she was actually a journalism teacher. And I still don't write as well as I should, but she really helped a lot. Dorothy Colts was a great lady.
Yeah, but we have up-to-date methods of getting our work done. And
I don't really understand that
Yeah, I
question
don't.
myself.
Yeah.
Next.
Wait.
I said I don't understand.
The number two.
We have up-to-date methods of getting work done here. Who is we?
And what do you? I
What
don't
is up to
understand.
date?
What
Yeah.
is,
The college has current technology.
This is this one in particular had no changes from last time around. So I'm going to ask the group, what did you guys mean 5 years ago?
Do we know what kind of
change
answers?
it to whatever
Probably
we want it to be.
business processes.
Probably.
Is what they were talking about.
It's a pre-banner.
That question is older than 5 years.
That question refers to how well we engrave things in stone with our chisels and hammers.
yeah,
Do we need this question?
What are we trying to, what
Yeah.
do we think we're trying to get out of it?
I would read this as technology.
So
Bob read this
just
as
ask
business
it.
practices.
Well, if you're going to do it as technology or business practice, you need to specify.
Yeah,
Because
just
I,
ask it.
Yeah.
you could say technology on campus is current and up to date or something like that.
we have
or-
up-to-date technology for getting work. I still don't think that.
Technology.
Use it if you're specific.
Yeah, up-to-date technology.
Appropriate and effective technology or something?
That's a different question.
What
Yeah.
about like paper?
It is, because it could be a
Not all
specific tool that I
paperwork is-
need within that technology.
Mhm.
That's-
We have the
It's
appropriate level of
technological
technology
stuff, I mean-
to provide administrative support. I mean, you could go in 18 different directions with that.
about
You know
just the
what?
school
Can I make a
house?
suggestion?
Of
Let's
course.
do business practices here because the technology committee is going to have a very detailed survey on technology. So does somebody have a suggestion on how we could word this to be more business practices oriented rather than getting work done here?
Bob, that was
Wasn't
good.
the next one operates efficiently, business
Yeah.
practices?
Isn't that the same thing?
Okay, so let's just remove this question.
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
For now.
That makes it easy.
That settles everything.
So to speak.
Okay. Moving on. Communication. I'm sorry?
No, forget it.
I don't really like that wording, the people up the line.
And in question one, it's a little, maybe it's just me, I am kept well informed about matters affecting us.
Us.
Yeah, I would make that, yeah.
But it's affecting me? Yeah.
I don't know, can we change people up the line too?
Me and my work.
My work environment.
We have a lot of,
Matters affecting,
I would just say my work,
yeah, my work.
okay?
Well, that's different than me.
yeah, you could just put me in my work, so it's,
I would keep me in there, me and my work.
I agree.
Okay.
for God's sakes, get rid of.
Instead of up the line,
Up the
could we
line.
say
Supervisors.
supervisors and administrators or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, supervisors and administrators.
Administrators.
Anything besides up the line is fine.
Yeah, the I in the week is kind of confusing.
It does.
really, you know.
I wonder if that could be I as well for the last
Yeah.
one.
I usually hear about important matters first through the grapevine. You don't like that metaphor?
Just make them all I.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, Pat, I was writing this one, what was that?
Well, just make everything I. For example, you have the
Yeah.
for statement that we're beginning with we again. So I usually hear about important matters
You got it.
first through the grapevine.
Our courier.
Oh, you're the courier.
The courier is always the first to know.
They hear about it through the grapevine.
Huh? Here?
Okay.
The
Thank you,
third
Pat.
one down, you need to please change the we to I also. I don't know if you heard that part.
Yeah.
Third one down.
What we have to say. I.
What I, yeah, I.
Got it?
Thank you.
Now this one, just so you realize, it's an interesting, you pick two, first choice, second choice. If you could improve two things at PCC, which of the following items, it should be would they?
Can we
Yes.
add things here?
Sure.
Can we see the whole list?
You can also add a number of choices if you want to give them 3 choices.
Yeah, do you guys want more than 2 choices?
Yeah.
How many choices do you want?
3 would be good.
3?
Oh, the magic number 3.
And quality of on-the-job training, and we mean that as separate than professional development opportunities?
I would assume so, but.
So, but we don't seem to have a professional development unless it's further below. Should we have something about professional development
I'm
opportunities?
going to zoom out just 5% here so you guys can see them all at once. I'm fine with adding something with professional development.
I'd like to add hiring procedures.
That's good.
I agree with Julie.
And can I ask what is meant by position review process?
It's a reclass process for our classified staff.
Okay.
So should we say that a little bit more clearly, then? Reclassification, position review process, or?
I think in the contract it actually says position. Does it say
I'm not
reclass or
familiar
does
with
it say
that
position?
term.
Right, so we probably wouldn't choose that.
Okay.
That's the language that's actually in their contract, so it's.
What if we just put in parentheses reclassification?
That would be good. That's for clarity.
Sure.
Ryan, isn't that last one arguably immaterial?
So they know about it.
Yeah, we can toss that one
I would recommend we remove that last, there is nothing I would improve it.
What do you guys
I'm gonna
mean?
put that
Some
for
people
1,
may
2,
think
and-
that we're,
Really?
perfect. No? Okay.
That's cute.
You're
They can
a
always just
dreamer.
leave it blank.
That's actually, Julie said that we put stuff in to make sure that people are paying attention. That's one of them.
Oh, really?
He's lying.
Would it be appropriate to put an other please specify here?
Sure. I think it would have to be a separate question. So maybe we add a narrative question after this because I don't think you can rank an other. Am I right in that, Crystal? You cannot rank an other. So if it's other, please specify. You can't then rank it 1, 2, 3.
The last one is a sentence.
We're taking it out.
That we are.
You just want to add a qualitative question that says,
Mhm.
you can think of anything else, let us know, or something like
Isn't there
that.
something after this that doesn't?
Let's check. Just additional comments.
Put it in another
Yes.
opening.
Yeah.
All right, great job. So, what's the timing on this, folks? Ryan and Crystal, what would be the timing on this, would you think, once we get this cleaned up?
I think appropriately, I'd probably like to launch it in April and close it at the end of April, give it 4 weeks.
Is everybody comfortable with that? So can I have an advisory motion to approve the survey as amended, plus the adjustments that the Academic Senate may or may not make by Tuesday at noon?
Can I just clarify something that'll take 20 seconds? We are an advisory committee, but we're an advisory committee to the president who's sitting right there, who is also the chair. And as governed by the Brown Act, we make motions and votes the same exact way. The difference is that whatever motion we have carries as an advisory to the chair.
Right.
So we don't have to say advisory or anything, just the normal way you would do a Brown Act meeting, just motion, just when you word it. So right now you'd say, motion to approve a recommendation to blah, 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 whatever. That's how you would word it.
Okay. And when we get into Brown Act, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I don't really care folks, how you want to do it. I just would like some kind of action.
Where do we stand in terms of the college, in terms of finals week and et cetera?
Finals week, et cetera. Does Dr. Bell, does anybody know?
May.
Dr. Scott? Second week in May.
So the results, we're expecting the results to be out by the end of April, would that be?
No, the survey would be closed at the end of April. The results, the results would not be, we wouldn't really get into them until the fall. Is that about right, Crystal? Which I think is, I mean, personally, I'm very, very interested to see if we've moved the mark from where we were last time to now, and how far we've moved that mark, and how much more work we need to do. So I'll be very anxious to see this, and then know what we need to do going forward, or have a better sense where we need to work going forward.
Finals May 4th.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve this on the basis of the tweaks we've made now, and whatever else the Academic Senate may or may not deliver to us by Tuesday at noon, and that means to deliver to Ryan and or Crystal.
Make that motion.
Eduardo, second.
Second.
Manny, further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all, and Eduardo.
Opposed? Abstentions? None. Thank you. Ryan, we'll start.
I said, I already sent it to Eduardo with the change.
Very good. Sincere thanks to Crystal and to Ryan for getting us this far. Very good. Thank you. Strategic conversations.
Yes. God, I'm talking too much at this meeting. So one of the board self-evaluation recommendations was to improve communication on our campus, and a suggestion from Donna Miller was an activity that she does in her district called Strategic Conversations, in which the campus develops some specific items that we would want to talk about, and then we invite board members to have those strategic conversations with us, not at a board meeting, but at a more informal and communicative venue. And we'd like to get on this, and so I'm coming to the committee asking how you would like to proceed in developing our own strategic conversations.
So just by way of a little bit more background, Donna Miller is a consultant recommended by ACCJC and CCLC as one of the people in our state who can work with boards to better work amongst themselves and to communicate more effectively with their constituents defined primarily as the campus. Donna's background, she is a former English teacher, a former dean, a former academic VP, and is now retired and continues to sit on the North Orange County Community College District Board as a trustee. So for the last, I want to say, 10 to 15 years, Donna has been acting in this capacity, In early November, November 6th, if the date is correct, Donna presented publicly to our board about strategic communication and about a variety of other things. That was very well received. Out of that, a number of plans were made in terms of board education, what have you. And Donna also did a presentation at the board's retreat that was held just last Saturday, their February 21st retreat. So this strategic conversations is part of the things that she recommended, and the board is very willing to do that and would like to do that. So I guess what we're here today is as a council to talk about, do we think that's a good idea? Would we enjoy that? I don't know if we need to come up with the topics today, but we want to put it on the radar. Maybe by the next meeting, I could ask people to bring some suggested topics to the table, and then Ryan and I can communicate that to board members. Yes, please.
I was going to say, historically, the board has been reluctant to communicate with the campus outside of its own board meetings. Does this mean that they have changed that position, or does that mean that our strategic conversations would take place within the context of a board meeting?
In a word, yes.
They've changed.
They've changed, and they're willing to have more than willing, they are anxious to have a forum discussion, a coffee, basically. Most of it is to listen, maybe to react a little bit, but to listen, but to try to get a better sense of where the campus is coming from and how people feel about things. Cynthia.
Bob, if I could just also remind us all that I think we also have to respect that the board members' role, their formal role in the institution, is to set policy, but not to be involved in operations. So I think that's where it's been challenging to ensure if we have a coffee, then whatever is being presented by all of us campus members, that it informs policy making, which is their role, but not operational stuff.
Yeah. But Cynthia is absolutely correct. At the same time, though, they want to hear everything, because again, it helps them to direct the superintendent president in ways that they think are important from a policy perspective. So it's an attempt by the board, and it's not just an attempt to fix something. It's an open, honest attempt to do a better job as board members. Chris.
I was wondering what you imagine the sort of the layout of that conversation to be. Who would be invited? What would the room look like?
Well, I think all of that is open to discussion, but in my mind, it would be it would be more of a coffee setting. So it might be in the circadian, round tables, coffee, refreshments, board members there, maybe sitting at the front, maybe sitting at the tables. I'm not sure how we would facilitate, but we'd have somebody help facilitate the discussion. And maybe we'd take questions ahead of time. We probably would want to get a small group together to try to figure out the protocol. And not ground rules per se, but basically, the ways in which we would engage in discussion.
Yeah.
Marsh?
I think we have to point out up front that there are some things that you can say anything you want to a board member and they'll listen, and that's the purpose of this, so that they can hear what you have to say one-on-one. But the problem in the past has been the difficulty of if you come up and say something to me and you spend 20 minutes saying it, and then I'm not allowed to respond to you, it makes it an awkward situation. So we have to say from the outset that there are some things that you will say to a board member that they will hear you, that they may not be able to give you a response that you'll like. They may just say, okay, I've heard you, thank you for telling me that. Does that make sense?
It does.
We're used to that.
I was going to say, what's new?
That'll be the same situation then during these coffee talks?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think it's just important to say that the purpose of a strategic conversation is basically, and as Donna described it, the board wants to be there to listen to what the concerns are. I think what Marshall's trying to say, they may have an immediate response right then and there, or they may want to take it under advisement and think about it, reflect upon it. But this is not about, and it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be perceived by anybody this way. It's not an adversarial thing, it's a conversation. It's like sitting around the kitchen table with your kids and having a conversation, and God knows we certainly disagree with our kids sometimes, but we talk about it and we try to work it through, right,
It's
Dr.
kind
Hughes?
of a disconnect to think about the board members and us in that way.
Well, but
Because
again,
it hasn't been like that
that's
for
right.
so very long.
That's exactly right. So they are trying to say there needs to be a better way than what we've done, and they're trying to do that. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I'd be disappointed if we went in expecting a certain openness from the board and we found that that wasn't the case. If we found silence in response, or if there wasn't a follow-up to the conversations where they replied to the concerns. And so I wouldn't tell the board what to do, but I would just put that out there, that if we met with that kind of silence, it could actually work against what we're at.
Yeah. So I see Ryan, I see Julie. Let me ask Julie and then Ryan, and I've got a thought about Manny's comment. Julie.
So at the college I came from, we did this, but it is a very challenging situation because the board cannot respond on everything. They legally cannot.
Sure.
They can't get involved in anything operational. And so there were some times when people would come with a very specific question and they wanted a very specific answer, and the board can't give that. So how ours were structured is, first everybody knew what was going to be discussed beforehand, so there was a topic, and the board would say something at the beginning, and then the campus, the people who attended the meeting, would engage in a conversation that the board would listen to, and it was like we were providing them advisement or whatever so that they could use that when they were going back to set their policy decisions.
Right, and the other thing real quick, I think this is important. The board listened, and the person who there's one person that they hire and fire, and that's the superintendent president. So they then communicate to the superintendent president, we heard all of this. So we really think that this is a direction that you need to head into because of this general concern. Now the superintendent president, she or he may say, I don't think so, and then that becomes another issue. But generally, the superintendent president, if he or she is feeling positive and engaged in the institution, well, everybody reports to somebody, right? So that's part of the conversation.
So I'm just going to read the description of it from North Orange so that people get the instinct of what it is. Strategic conversations are planned but informal, and the plan refers to what Julie's talking about. It's not just a free-for-all, people come and do public comment. Discussions conducted in a democratic and conversational style and focused on policy issues. The goal of this effort is to help our Board of Trustees thoroughly examine what drives its policy decisions by involving everyone who wishes to express a point of view and gathering information in a less structured atmosphere than a traditional board meeting. The process provides opportunities for a positive exchange of ideas and concerns as well as improved decision-making among all constituencies. Anyone from the district and the community at large may participate in the conversations, which are aimed at maximizing dialogue among all who have an interest in the district. It is important to note that strategic conversations are not designed to result in formal decisions, rather to develop ideas and information that may assist in decision-making in the future. Topics will be confined to policy, not operational matters, and topics may be proposed by anyone in the district and will be selected by a board subcommittee. That's how they run it. I think this group would be a pretty effective group. Their next strategic conversations, which is in a few weeks, is supporting all students, the challenge of creating and promoting a culture of equity.
Okay. So that sounds like a very good description. So let me ask this, are we as a group willing to empower Ryan and myself to work with the board officers to create a forum of that type? Would this group like to pull together 3 or 4 people to get together and work with Ryan to try and create something, a suggestion to the board officers as to how we might want to try to do this here? Although I must admit that what Ryan just read and what Julie described, this sounds like a pretty good approach to this. So what's the pleasure of the group?
I think unless we outline these we'll call rules of engagement of this meeting and what everyone needs to know or expect that can or cannot happen, If everyone is not aware of that, then we're gonna set ourselves up for failure. Because people are gonna go in with certain expectations that they'll be able to talk to the board, they're gonna expect an answer, etc. But as we just heard, that's not the case. So I think step one is to create these rules and regulations, inform everyone, and then once we agree on that, then we can move forward. This way, no one will go in with these expectations that will never materialize and just create another problem.
I think that's very wise. So how about we talk about this scenario, that maybe Ryan, Donna, and I have a telephone conversation, and we create these guidelines, and then we bring the guidelines back to the College Council at the next meeting, get some agreement on the guidelines, and then take those suggestions to the board. Yes, Ryan?
I would love to include Julie in that conversation as well, if she has time, with her 36 hires.
Which Julie?
Would you?
This one?
Yeah, the one who's done it before at another campus.
And Donna actually came and spoke at COC too.
Oh, okay, so you guys derived it from the same?
I believe so.
Okay, then I think you and Donna's fine.
Okay, so does that work? And then we'll bring something back at the March 26th meeting to kind of give you a sense of, I'll call them guidelines. The guidelines for the meeting, we'll get some consensus around this, and we'll take that to the board. Does that work?
I'd kind of like to know who's going to be invited to the meetings from the campus community.
I think what I heard North Orange say, it's open to everybody.
Anybody can go.
Anybody, community members as well as campus community. So, you know.
Faculty, staff, students.
Faculty, staff, students, people who live across the street, you know.
On average, how many people go, do you know? To these meetings, so we can
because
have
they
an idea?
only did it, they did it during both flex weeks. So at COC, they have a flex week before fall and a flex week before spring.
A whole week of flex?
Yeah, they have 41 and a half hours of required flex each year. Yeah. But anyway, so at each flex week, they would do it as one of the sessions. They would do the board session, usually on like the Wednesday or Thursday afternoon. It was like 2-3 hours, something like that.
Yeah, and one of the things we can talk about, but it'd be nice to do this maybe at least twice a year, maybe a Friday morning or afternoon.
I forgot to say how many people came. So a significant amount of the faculty would go. So I'd say they have about 170 full-time faculty, so maybe 60, 70 faculty would go. A lot of faculty, because it was during flex week and they got credit for flex. But then you would not get as many staff, but you would get a lot of managers and some students, but their students are not as active as our students are here, so I think we would probably get a lot more students.
How big is the venue?
We would, big. Yeah. We had a big room.
But that's not a conversation.
Yeah, that's not a conversation.
Well,
I think it's you have to rethink what you mean by conversation, because it is a campus strategic conversation that the board is listening to and taking something away from. So it's like having them here and listening to the conversations we're having.
You could choose to watch his videos every week, right? I mean, this is the same thing as that, just wearing a different hat and dressed up real pretty and with a new label.
Well, you know, it's an attempt. You know, you know, unless...
How about some real coffee with some real people and 5 people at the table and a real conversation?
Then we could recommend that as well. So the point is...
I mean, that's a strategic conversation.
Is this a direction we want to go or not? And, you know, and maybe we start with the big and we move to the smaller, you know, when people feel comfortable. I don't know.
Well, and I'll just be honest, I like this setting, this strategic, the one that Ryan proposed, better, because the board is not supposed to be involved in the day-to-day operations. And when you get into those smaller settings, it's not about policy, it's about the day-to-day operations. And so, me personally, I do have a concern about the blurred lines.
Dr. Lebo and then Jordan.
I think this is a good start. I oftentimes think of things in version 1.0, version 2.0, so I think this is a good start. Then we can assess and see if it meets our campus needs and determine if we need something different and more intimate, like by constituent group.
Or more.
Right.
You know, another level. Jordan.
I do feel like having everybody there is going to be a lot for the first couple of runs. I think we need to ease into that if we are going to do that. But and I understand the board's position on everyday operations and them not being involved. However, it's the everyday operations that inform policy and that form policy. And it's the everyday conversations that we're having with each other that they don't get to hear. And so I think what that is going to do on a sort of personal level is inform them to make better decisions, because if I go and sit, for example, for my constituents, if I go and sit in a club meeting and I don't know what our African American students need or our Latino students need, I'll go sit in a meeting with Clave, Puente, or JIMA or UWB, because I need to know what their decisions they're making to inform my decisions, even though ultimately my decisions have nothing to do with what happens with the club. And I think that having a conversation just with us and the board having, it just, to me in the beginning, it sounds like too much to happen at once. I think if we have like a smaller, we start small and then get big, I think we could get to the point where it's like, let's invite community members. Why not? That's just my opinion.
So let's just use a possible example of what a topic could be. Let's say it's the winter, whether we're gonna have a winter or not. And we have this open forum discussion that the board observes about winter. And the students come forward with their survey, and the faculty come forward with their position, and the classified have their position, and we discuss it. They sit there, they listen to it, they have a very strong sense of what the campus community is interested in. They take that under consideration. They meet with the superintendent president, and they say, well, and maybe it helps to inform them on a topic of significant importance to the district. That's one topic. Ryan, were you going to say something?
Well, I do like the idea of scaling up. I mean, we should start small. So, I mean, we technically we could even say, well, a college council meeting will be dedicated simply to that topic with the board of trustees. We have representatives from all the constituent groups, and depending on how that goes, we can say, well, you know, based on the topic, based on the ability of everyone to participate, we can either make it larger or make it smaller. But you know, we do have this practice here of starting small and gradually growing. Well, we can do the same thing with that.
So it sounds like maybe we need to kind of appoint a subgroup to sort of kick the tires on this concept a little bit more before we even had the conversation with Donna, and say our group's gotten together and we believe that this would be a way to approach this strategic conversations thing. Is that a direction that the group would like to go and have some more conversation on and think about before we launch into something?
Do you think Donna could
facilitate a discussion?
Give us an overview of like examples of what they've done at North Orange and how it works for them and their successes and failures?
Before I answer that, Marshall.
I was going to say I agree, but I think we need to specifically talk about what kinds of topics and what kinds of responses we're given, so that we can see kind of what to expect. I also think the forum idea, I don't know if I like it, for the simple fact that if we're having a forum and we're having a discussion, which healthy debate is great, but what you want to present to the board is what comes out of the end result of the debate, the collaboration that we've came to, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more important to have that forum come to the collaboration and bring that presentation to the board under an information agenda item. I think that's a different thing.
So in the interest of, yeah, Pat.
Wouldn't it be a good idea to ask the board what they mean by a strategic conversation?
Well, okay, so in the interest of time, well, first of all, what I think they mean by strategic conversations is what Ryan read, okay, because that's been a successful model that's been helpful to other districts and other district elected officials as they consider the needs of their districts. So that's what the board means. It doesn't mean that the board's only interested in that. The board, in the aggregate, is interested in better communications, and so that's their purpose. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that they are reaching out and saying we need to have another way of communicating with the college constituency groups other than the formal board meetings, which are very limited in terms of how things are discussed and what have you. So what I'm going to put on the table for consideration is that we perhaps have 1 or 2 representatives maximum from each shared governance group. Ryan can convene this group. Perhaps we ask Donna Miller to come and help discuss the topic, and then the group can report back to us in terms of what it is that they would recommend for us to consider. Ryan?
I would like to recommend that the group that's going to work with me come from this committee and be identified right now, because I'm still waiting on representatives to the other task groups.
And that's fine, and that's fine, and I get that. But let's start with the concept first.
Yes.
Are we interested in the concept?
Sure. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then, taking to the next step, is it possible then, now, for the Academic Senate, the Classified Senate, the Management Association, and the Associated Students to suggest representation? Yes.
I'll work with you on that, Ryan, for the Senate.
So I got
Okay.
Chris.
And then I was getting, while the others are thinking about it, does the union feel that, does any union feel that they need to be part of this discussion as well, or should we just leave it to the shared governance group?
Given Julie's perspective, if you're available, Julie, I'd love to have you on that group.
I've asked for coffees many times that have been denied, so I would really like to have a conversation.
I'll buy you a coffee, Julie.
So does anybody have a concern with Julie joining as a faculty member being part of the discussion? Seeing none, so Julie's part of the group. So is the Management Association and/or Classified ready to give us a group?
Yeah, do you mind?
No,
So I'm gonna
it's
do it
fine.
now, and I'm not gonna have the time.
Yes.
to
So
devote to it, but I should.
So Joe will represent management classified?
Either Deb or I.
So Deborah or Jeannie? All right, and students?
Jordan would like to volunteer.
And Jordan will volunteer. Okay, did Jordan actually volunteer, or did he?
Yeah, tell him he volunteered.
Okay.
I have to volunteer because he can't, so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Jordan will be, that's very good, so thank you, Jordan. All right, so, and then I think it's okay that Donna would be facilitating the discussion, or at least be joining the conversation. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
As information, and if you see her style, she's very, by the way, she was a communications professor. That was her thing, not English, she was communications. Okay, so moving on to the next item, folks.
Could I make a motion to move number 11 up to the next one, just to make sure that we get to it? It's important.
Absolutely. So let's.
I only need 1 minute for Brown Act. If we
Okay,
could do
then.
that first, just so we get it done.
Yes, one minute, go for it.
The board has had a successful Brown Act training with Todd Galuba. He was recommended by the CCLC. I sat in on that training. He's fantastic. We would like to bring him for training to the shared governance groups here, and we just wanted thumbs up on working through that and some suggested timelines.
Timelines in regards to when?
What would be a good time to invite him to come?
Can you give us some insight on what the board gained
Yeah,
from
let
that?
me go ahead and do a quick thing on that. Todd, first of all, the objective was to bring in a new voice, not an LCW voice, not a Gail Cooper voice, but a new voice and a recognized Brown Act expert. Todd Galuba is with Aiken, a law firm that ALRR, whatever they are, I forget. But anyway, Todd has done a number of Brown Act trainings up and down the state, and came to us highly recommended. So what occurred was that Todd came in and in pretty clear English, non-legal, non-attorney, non-whatever, went through the Brown Act. And he has a good sense of humor, he has a good grasp of the whole thing, and the board got a pretty good education on what their requirements are in the Brown Act, what is Brown Act, what isn't Brown Act, etc. Marshall was there, and I think he would agree that he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's also important to sort of answer your question. He does go over this brief overview, hitting high points, but before he'll ask you, the group that he's doing it to, what would you like to talk about? So anything you have questions about, any topics you'd like him to delve into, he'll hit those points for you.
So now that we've done that, and we've said to the board, and the board's very in favor of this, we want to have Todd come in and do the same presentation for all the shared governance groups, but also specifically look at our board policy, look at what we define as Brown Act, and then go down every one of those committees, the ones that are in board policy and the ones that we talk about, and say, is this a Brown Act or is this not a Brown Act? and go all the way down the list so that we definitively know, assuming we agree with Todd as an expert, what is by law Brown Act, what is not necessary, what does not have to be Brown Act, and what shouldn't be Brown Act in terms of how we try to conduct our business. So that's what we're suggesting, and so we would like to do that sometime this spring, if possible, so that we can again try to get a handle on this as we go forward into the next school year, academic year.
Ryan, how long is the training?
That's something we can discuss. He did an hour and a half with the board, and that seemed to be an effective timeline when, as Marshall said, we have specifics and he comes prepared already knowing our structure. So I think maybe a couple hour and a half ones so that if people can't make one, we have an alternative would be a good start.
Yeah, and I'd actually say a couple of hours, and we might do, these kind of things you'd either do like a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning, if anybody wanted to come in on a Saturday morning. And just, you know, we do it someplace comfortable, we bring in, you know, food and whatever we needed to, and just have it. Yes, Julie?
What about an alternating Monday to the Senate Monday?
That could work too. It's a good idea. It'd be like a 3 to 5 on an alternating Monday. That's actually a pretty good idea.
And maybe provide one earlier in the day too for those people who aren't senators who might want to come, and we can do 2.
But not on Monday, because
Well,
then there will be classes, so Friday morning.
I think if we're going to bring them out, we should bring them out for one day because it's expensive. to bring
Well, why don't we
them.
do this? Why don't we start with the alternating Monday? I think people, the shared governance groups know the importance of it, and if we need to pay for subs, Dr. Bell, if we need to work with our classified managers to release the classified staff, whatever we need to do, let's try that first and then go from there. And we can pick a Monday, alternating Monday, and try to do the 3 to 5 thing. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so let's do that. So now we're past our time, but I want to move up item number 11.
Yeah, real quickly, so within the Academic Senate, I brought up the idea of trying to resolve a problem that we have in terms of the hiring committees. The constant complaints is that you have the same people participate in these committees, that these committees are stacked, and from my personal point of view is that it's always difficult to obtain people to volunteer, and sometimes hiring committees move forward without faculty. So what we'd like to present here to the College Council is the idea of creating a system, something like the lottery, in which management, staff, and faculty, we all create a lottery system and assign a number to every single employee, so that as we get the word from human resources that we need 3 people, we simply drop down from the list and get the first 2, the next 2, and go down this method. And this way, the idea of it's stacked or the same people, that's eliminated. It makes the individuals responsible for providing personnel. It makes their lives easier. And so I'd like to see how the classified staff and the management feel about that, and hopefully present that back to your, and to the students also. I don't know how it works with you, but find a way that which it'll make the whole process easier and eliminate a lot of the problems that we have.
So we've talked about this actually in
Right.
our Management Association board meetings, because we also have trouble finding people willing to volunteer for committees. And so we have internally, amongst ourselves, created kind of a twofold process. We have an opportunity for people to volunteer, but then if nobody volunteers, we have a ranking from the last time you served, and each time you serve, you drop down to the bottom of the list. So that's what we're working on right now. My only concern with having purely, just a true pure ranking, is that you lose the ability to have people on the committee who have knowledge and insight into that. So for example, if we're hiring in facilities, say, and the next manager or the next classified that are on this ranking, none of them are in facilities, now you've lost anybody with any knowledge who can really contribute to whether the candidates technically can do the job.
You're absolutely right. And so the second part is that we also looked at that issue. One of representatives brought that up. So say, for example, we need a dean for humanities. So the faculty in humanities, if they want to participate, they have first dibs. And say, let's suppose we need 3 faculty, but only 2 volunteer. then those 2 individuals would be sent forward, and then we go to our drop-down list and put in the third. So we set up a mechanism
Very
Similar to what we're doing.
Exactly. The only question, a problem that we have is, okay, so let's suppose that I'm next on the list and I'm on maternity leave.
Right.
Well, so what happens to me? So where do I drop down? So we figured we could just drop you on, just create an arbitrary number. You go 4 down, and there you go. So hopefully by that time,
Just
that
stay at the
individual-
top of the list, but take the next person.
Right, exactly. So to
They're still at
eliminate,
the
there'll be
top.
instances where faculty or we cannot attend for jury duty,
Right.
illness, etc.
And I know that there's been, and I'm not involved, but I know Terry's trying to schedule some meetings because everybody wants to work on revising the hiring procedures. Maybe this could be something that could be captured in the hiring
Within the
procedures.
process.
Because I know classified have a slightly different process because they have a limit on how often a classified can serve.
Well, and so we have a couple of issues. So what I want to put out there is that we do accept volunteers. People can email me directly. We've got a form on the website that we also get volunteers by. But according to policy 6200, as it's currently written, there are several different layers of how you go through picking people, and part of the actual policy has to do with you have to pick someone for the hiring committee that would work in that area or work closely with that person. I mean, it's actually written into the policy. So a straight lottery for us probably wouldn't work.
Unless the policy will be rewritten.
So here's, I guess, a couple of quick comments here. One, I really like the collective idea of trying to, it's like jury duty. You know, you have to do your civic duty. So I like this concept. The second thing is HR, and specifically Terry, is working towards this notion. Hang on, let me finish real quick. Is working towards this notion of creating new hiring policies for each employee group, if you will, for faculty, for classified staff, and for managers. This idea can be folded into those discussions, should be. At the same time, though, that's going to take us some time to get all that worked out. To the degree that the Management Association, the Academic Senate, the Classified Senate, and the Associate Students, as need be, can get together and loosely agree on this lottery thing so we can put something in place now while we work out the bigger issues, that would be good. Julie's looking at me with her HR face saying no.
Well, one of my biggest concerns, and yeah, now I'm speaking on behalf of HR, which I probably shouldn't in this role, but one of the other concerns that we have is that not only the trouble in getting appointments because the groups have a hard time getting people to volunteer,
Right.
but then we get appointments and they drop off. And so my other concern with the lottery is the commitment. So, for example, if we have a manager, a classified, or a faculty that's picked because of this lottery, and then they drop off, one of 2 things either has to happen. We either have to get them to commit, all of the faculty, that if I'm up next, I'm going to do it. Or if they drop off and we're already moving along, it's really hard for the department that needs the person hired, for the rest of the committee who's already done the work, and the applicants who are waiting to hear about their status, to then have to start all over with a new committee member.
Okay, but that's a different issue, I think. And I think that's an issue. What do you do if the committee is set, the work of that committee starts, and somebody drops off?
We have that problem already, don't we?
My humble opinion
It's a
is,
huge problem right now.
but my humble
Yeah.
opinion is that the committee just keeps going.
And I would love for that to happen, but
Okay.
that's not what's happening now.
Well, but
And I'm
personally, I
cons-
think it should happen
but-
because we can't.
But I'm concerned if we're doing a lottery, there's less commitment for them to actually attend and show up.
Well, then that's the risk. So let's agree to this, and we can have further discussion if you need to. The Academic Senate can appoint people however it deems appropriate. National Association can do the same thing, Classified can do the same thing. So they can go ahead and do this if they want to, they don't need any permission from us to do this, nor does Classified, nor does management. The obligation is to get people on the committees. So I think if we all agree with that, let them do whatever they feel is needed and let them police it. There is a secondary problem of what do you do when people drop off? Can it stop the problem? One thing that's important to know, Julie told me that we have 36 faculty that we're hiring. That's a little over 3,600 applications. On average, it's 100 applications per faculty member. So the HR staff is dealing with 3,600 applications. dealing with new technology, Cornerstone on Demand, and actually trying to fill other positions, classified and management on top of that. Okay? Huge, huge workloads. We owe a great debt of gratitude to HR right now for pushing their way through this. So we need to help them with this. So we can't slow this process down. We've got to keep this process moving. Marshall, then Deborah, and I'm not sure if Julie's here.
I'm just going to save you the conversation with students that this will never work for students ever, and I think Jordan will back me up on that. It's just not a possibility. It's a combination of things: pulling teeth to get people to show up to a committee, to volunteer for a committee, to forego all the excuses to come to a committee and all those things. It's just not going to work.
Okay, so you guys have to come up with your own approach.
Yeah.
Deborah.
So my comment is actually to the groups that are reviewing the hiring policies in specific. I'm very concerned about representation on policy 6200 review, that our representation as classified staff members for our hiring policy, in my opinion, is not adequate. We got 2 reps this time as opposed to last time I think it was 4 or 5, and you have to consider we have 3 unions, we have a meet and confer, and we've got the classified senate. So I have grave concerns about our representation.
Okay, so that's another issue. We can work that out with Terry, and eventually, that's what I'm saying, this process could take a year to get resolved in terms of these hiring, to redo these hiring procedures.
I don't know if I can work it out with Terry or not. I've already indicated my concerns to her, and I didn't get a very sympathetic response. So
Okay.
that's why I'm bringing it up at this.
So what that means is whatever she's going to end up creating then is going to run into some problems down the road. So, so that's an issue. So, Joel mentioned it. I'll talk to Terry about it. We'll see what we can do to try to loosen that up a little bit. But we still have committees we've got to fill. Who was next? I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that.
Sure.
So if what we're trying to do here is we're trying to eliminate problems. So I think that by doing this, it's great. But if we're the only ones that do it, and let's suppose, I'm just going to say hypothetically, let's suppose that everyone has the same problem of the idea of stacking. But if it's only the Senate that, or the fact that's able to do it, then we only remove 1/3 of the process of the problem. So hopefully we can all do something very similar in order to try to eliminate that problem. And then the problem that we foresee is that so let's suppose that Chris is up next and Chris says, well, it's not in my contract, I don't have to do it. There's absolutely right. So it'll be the burden of the faculty of the Senate to let them know that there's a professional responsibility on this campus. And it should be there, a little bit of peer pressure, let them know what that is. Now the problem that Deborah mentioned, I agree with her, and this is a different issue, but it is related to hiring committees, that in the process of revamping or updating these hiring committees, there should be more representation by the faculty to deal with the faculty hiring committee. There should be more representation for the staff to do it. So what I propose is that as different groups, that let the staff revamp the staff hiring, let the faculty revamp it, let management revamp it, and hopefully this. But then we bring it to the management, or to the college council. Excuse me.
Okay, so I've heard pretty clearly now from both classified and academic senate that there are concerns about how this policies, these hiring priorities or policies are being put together. So I heard you, and we'll work on that.
I just have one concern about the stacking. So while we do have trouble, the Management Association does have trouble sometimes getting volunteers for committees, I think we've had enough discussions amongst our group now that we have convinced people of the importance to volunteer. So what I'm concerned is, what you just said, is that if we actually get everybody to volunteer each time and we don't need to go to our lottery, I'm concerned that it's going to be perceived as stacking.
No.
Okay.
No, it will not be enough, because this is something that actually is a good thing, because now we have everybody participating, whereas if you continue having the same people, that's a different issue.
Oh yeah, no, we don't always.
Okay, being cognizant of everybody's time, it's 10 to 12. Is there anything else? What we'll do is we'll continue these other items to the next meeting.
Would anyone mind for discussing the calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have another meeting coming in at noon, Bob.
Yeah, calendar committee is in 10 minutes.
Well, let me put something on the table regarding the calendar, because I think it's important for people to know this. Okay, I mentioned this at Kaplan yesterday. I am fully aware that the students have come out in support of a winter calendar. I'm fully aware that various groups on the campus are supportive of a winter intersession. However, for two reasons, my recommendation to the board, which will occur at the March 18th meeting, is that we maintain the calendar that we have right now into the next academic year, into the 15-16 academic year, for two reasons. Reason number one, because of our arrangement or our agreement with the Faculty Association regarding, we're going to wait until the PERG hearing comes down, the PERG decision comes down before we sit down with the FA and discuss the working condition aspects of this. Reason number two is that there's a new superintendent president who will be seated, hopefully July 1st or August 1st at the latest, and she or he should have an opportunity to weigh in on this topic. Now, so that's going to be my recommendation. I'll add this parenthetically to say the board can do with that whatever it needs to do or wants to do with that. I fully would expect that on March 18th that various groups would speak to their desire, including the calendar committee. We will report very fully to the board that the calendar committee has voted in favor of the new calendar or returning the winter. And I'll sit back and listen to the discussion and then await the board's decision on what it wants to do. I also want to say very clearly this should not be interpreted as my personal opinion on whether we should or should not have a winter calendar going into 16-17. I want to spend, personally I would spend a lot of next year thoroughly discussing it, looking at all of the data points that relate to this, and then making a recommendation. If I am the one who's selected, I might have a very different perspective on this, but I'm not, I don't want to take that purview outside of whomever will be selected. Okay, I just wanted to get that on the table. I think that's what you wanted to hear. Is that enough for now?
Yes.
I mean, you can do more if you want.
Okay, so quick. So, if the board of trustees selects you as president, are you in favor? You yourself, are you in favor or opposed to winter?
At this point, I'm Switzerland. Okay, I'm neutral on the issue, but I will say my mind is very, very, very open on this topic. I want to do what's best for students. I want to do what will lead to greater completion. And I can say this without a moment's hesitation. I believe the board does as well. Okay.
Well, what do student voices matter then if they voted in favor of the calendar? And the Board of Trustees, and you claim that you're in what the students want, and the students have given their voice. This is what they want.
Yeah. Again, I've stated my two reasons, and I respect what you're saying, Pat. I certainly respect what the student survey says, and I fully expect a full discussion at March 18th. Doctor.
I thought College Council sent recommendations to the board.
To the superintendent president.
So this body doesn't get to vote.
No,
You
no, no, no,
vote
no, no,
on our
no.
behalf?
No, no, we don't have a recommendation from the calendar committee today, do we?
Yes, we do. We made a motion that was contingent on the survey. The survey
So
came out in positive.
if we're ready to take an action on this today, I'm more than happy for the college council to vote on it. More than happy. Or Dr. Bell, or do you have a report?
I can tell you what I know. The calendar committee met on the 19th last Thursday. I was not there. Mark Whitford chaired the meeting. As Marshall said, the committee voted 8-3 to recommend to this council a 2015-2016 calendar with the winter intersection with the proviso that there was no negative feedback received from students. That was a motion that was on the table and passed 8-3. The students, I believe, and if I'm incorrect, Marshall and Jordan can correct me, discussed the results of their survey yesterday at an Associated Students meeting, and it is on the agenda for the calendar committee to pick up and we convene in 5 minutes.
So the chair will entertain a motion regarding the calendar committee has not acted yet?
The motion was already made, the motion was already passed, and it was only...
No, I'm talking about for the council, here.
Oh, for the council, I thought you were on council.
Yeah, I will entertain a motion regarding the calendar.
I motion to recommend moving forward with a calendar that includes winter.
I second.
For what year?
15, 16.
15, 16.
For 15, 16, all right. Do we have any further discussion? Or do we have discussion?
Did you do public comment already? 'Cause I
Yes,
waited for
we did.
this, but not on this agenda item. We did non-agenda items?
That's true. We'd be happy to take discussion. Go ahead, please, Melissa.
Thank you. 937 students signed a very valid petition. Another 560 answered they need a semester before spring in the Associated Student Survey. Nevertheless, administration doesn't seem to want to put forth a calendar with winter. They don't really care what students need, even though you say you do.
I'm sorry, where's that comment coming from?
What reasons do they give? Because of PERB. Why wait for PERB? What about thousands of students now? I don't recall what Julie Kiotis said about PERB being in the contract. That doesn't make any sense to me, so it doesn't necessarily mean that. In the new president, whomever that should be, should weigh on the topic. That's someone not even here. And without some very, very, very clear reasons supported by evidence, why the administration refuses to put in a winner, seems, why they will ignore the shared governance process. I hope you guys put that governance forth. Why they will ignore what students need. I hope you guys are ready for more negative press, raucous board meetings with 1,400 students when they learn that that you're not listening to their needs. So especially during accreditation, any kind of discord right now is probably not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. So let me ask a question of Dr. Lebo and Dr. Bell and Dr. Scott, perhaps. If there is the introduction of a winter in 15-16, what impact will that have on our current students?
We need time to work on ed plans to help students make academic decisions about scheduling of courses for their requirements to transfer or earn a certificate or earn an associate degree. And then we need to program in the appropriate financial aid disbursement schedule for the funding for next year.
Okay. How much time?
It's immediate.
Let's vote.
I just have a question because obviously I was not here when we had winter and was not involved in the discussions for, aware of the reasons why we got rid of it. The calendar committee, I assume, has representatives from each of the groups, students, faculty, staff, management, and their decision was 8-3 in favor of a winter.
Right. Okay. So, okay. So I think that's fine. I think there's a motion on the table. Yes.
If I could, just so that we all are understanding the governance process, could you clarify again the process? So
well, the process is that the calendar committee has met, calendar committee has voted, calendar committee has done its thing. The calendar committee is recommending to the College Council that we put forward a recommendation to the superintendent and president to have a 15-16 winter. So that's the issue. And I have been very forthright in what I will recommend to the board. And the board then will have the decision whether or not to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and president or to accept the larger desire of the campus community. And you've heard my two reasons, and believe me, I will be happy to sit back and abide by whatever decision the board makes. I just want to make sure that when the board is asked to make this decision, and let's say that let's say they acquiesce and they say, you know what, we agree, that we can then make certain that we're not going to put students in a bad place who are on some type of educational planning cycle right now. Should we take a year for transition to make sure that we don't do what we did last time, which was to leave several hundred students in a lurch because they were caught in between on the calendars?
Dr. Miller, if I may offer, given the vote and recommendation of the calendar committee last week, Dr. Olivo and I will begin the process of determining what would be the necessary steps so that we don't find ourselves in any consequential situations with students should the board adopt the calendar for the plenary session.
Very good. And I suspect that'll be a topic of conversation on the 18th. Dan?
Dr. Miller, when you present your recommendation to the board, I assume you'll present the calendar that the calendar committee
Absolutely.
Approved, and you'll also present the recommendation of College Council, however we
Absolutely.
choose to.
You know, to the extent that people trust and respect me in terms of my objectivity and my honesty and my integrity on this issue, I will do so in a very forthright way. I mentioned the 2 reasons. The board might say they're not good enough reasons, Dr. Miller, thank you very much. And that's fine. And my only real concern is what happens in the transition, and we go from there. Marcia.
We got a minute and a half. I'd like to call the question.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We have 2 oppositions, Dr. Arnwine and Dean Footner. Any abstentions?
I think I need to abstain.
And Julie Mosier is abstaining. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Eduardo, for putting that forward. All right, everyone, have a good day.